Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke. Tonight, I'm joined by the usual suspects, Mika Burrell. Mika, what's up?
Hey, not much. 7 straight undefeated, so feeling good.
This is like the prime time to be a Locomotive fan because we're not having to talk about any setbacks at the moment.
No, not at the moment. I think last season, if I'm not mistaken, this was kind of like our prime too. So I think late summer is like that sweet spot for Locomotive.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And we are also joined tonight once again by Christian Canales. Christian, welcome back.
What's up, man? What's up? I had a random question that just popped into my head earlier today that I wanted to ask. Specifically for Phil, but I mean, it's something that we can all have an opinion on. Because I had pizza for lunch, and I thought, well, Phil is from a pizza notorious area, so I was curious what your thoughts are on deep dish, Phil.
All right, my deep dish take, and for those who don't know, I am from the suburbs of Chicago. I'm not from the city. I want to make that clear. I don't want to be fake or anything, but from Chicagoland, and deep dish to anyone from the city is a once in a while, like once every once in a while type thing. It's not like, hey, let's order pizza, like, and you get a deep dish. Like, that's not, if I'm eating pizza, there's a Chicago style called Tavern Style, which is a thin crust pizza that's square cut. Like it's a circle cut into squares. And Tavern Style is like what you would mostly see at like pizza joints, like throughout the suburbs in the city, when you're not getting like specifically a deep dish. So nice as a treat. But to call it Chicago style is like maybe a little bit of a stretch because it's not what Chicagoans like primarily eat, in my experience.
That's fair. I was just curious. You're the first person that I know from that area. So
I love that as a kickoff question, though. I mean, Mika, like you were out in Jersey and everything, like New York, Jersey, East Coast is very intense about pizza. So, like, what's your? I
am also from a pizza notorious area, I guess you could say, a PNA, as it were. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, so. We have our New York style, which is like, very flat and, minimal on the toppings usually. And so the first time I ever had deep dish in Chicago, they brought it out and I was like, why did you bring me soup? Like
in a fucking bread bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, why is this like kind of sweet? Like it was weird. It was good. Like, don't get me wrong, but like definitely prefer my New York style. And honestly, the Tavern Style sounds really good. So the next time I'm in Chicago, Phil, like just, you're gonna have to tell me like where I can get some legit like Tavern Style. Cause I actually like the thinner crust myself. Yeah,
no, it's, yeah, I'll hit you with the recommendations offline, but no, I mean, Christian, like obviously El Paso is not necessarily known for pizza, but I would say that there are good pizza places in El Paso. Like, where's your go-to spot in El Paso for pizza?
I mean, if we're talking like affordable pizza that you could, get, on any given day, it's not specific to El Paso, but it's kind of regionally specific. But I think Peter Piper is the best. I don't think you can beat Peter Piper. Definitely better than any national chains. I'm not going to say Domino's, Papa John's Pizza, anything like that. But yeah, I think Peter Piper is definitely my go-to as far as affordable. I like Grimaldi's a lot too, but that's not something that you can have, on any given day.
Grimaldi's is wild because there was a Grimaldi's in my wife's like college town in upstate New York. So like when we got to El Paso and they built a Grimaldi's in the fountains, I was like, why is this happening? But yeah, Grimaldi's is class for like chain, it's a high class chain. But as far as El Paso pizza goes, I mean, I'm pretty partial to like Artavino's. I don't know if you guys are down with Artavino's. Mm-hmm. That's a good one for me, I think. Very Italian, like it feels authentic. Like like New York, more New York style. Like
for sure. My dad's born and raised in New Jersey, and he loves Artavino. So I guess that they get the stamp of approval from him. So
right. Well, as we dive in here to Locomotive talk, transitioning away from the pizza, it's 4 straight wins. Locomotive getting the 2-1 win in a lot less dramatic fashion this time against Colorado Springs, but still leaving some room at the end for a little bit of the cardiac kids, as I've come to call them. A little bit of that tension and like, okay, are we going to see this out? And but Locomotive do, and in the process, post game, I mean, first things first, Mika, like, Locomotive locked down that playoff spot by virtue of their win, and Real Monarchs lost to Timbers 2 later that night. Locomotive back in the postseason. It started to feel like a foregone conclusion, but it still feels good to wrap it up right, or as early as we can.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think that will inform our team selections, down the stretch. But no, yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that we're in the playoffs again for a second straight season, and our second season ever. So it's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations to Mark Lowry and his staff, and of course Mountain Star, who've given Mark the resources to build a playoff team. So yeah, it's huge. I was surprised that Real Monarchs bottled it against T2. I was expecting us to wait just, a little bit longer. But cheers to them for expediting things for us. So,
Christian, I mean, at the beginning of this restart, we were kind of talking about the vibe we were getting from some of the comments Mark had and some of the moves that were going on, and Mark even saying like some of these moves aren't going to make sense for right now, where I'm looking ahead to next season. I guess, how much does it say that even in a season where it seemed like we were looking ahead to the next one, we're still into the postseason?
Yeah, like, what the hell's going to happen next season? Like, I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. I think it just says, if those comments are genuine, then I just think it says a lot about how well the club is run, where, we can be really just playing around at this point and be where we are at this point in time, with a playoff berth locked. I think it's great.
Christian, I mean, starting this conversation, we have to go to you. But the starting lineup revealed 2 players in particular who have not gotten a start yet since coming over from Bravos, and Adair Borelli and Leandro Caillo are straight into the starting lineup, and they played pretty well overall. But what did you make of the full debut of the boys from across the border?
Yeah, I mean, it was really exciting to see that. I figured it had to happen at some point. We knew that the lineup was not going to look the same. This was an opponent that maybe we could afford to experiment a little against. So, in hindsight, it was almost a certainty, I would say, that the lineup ended up looking like this. So I was impressed. And I think that they were kind of exactly who we thought they would be. Early on, really smart moves off the ball. I think he's flashy by any means. I think he's kind of past that point in his career maybe, but he's got a lot of intelligence for the game. And we'll talk about it, but he should have a goal at this point. Borelli being a little bit younger. And the other thing about Leandro too is I think we saw that he's probably not a starter for most of the time because, at about 50 minutes, I think you see the quality dip just a little bit. But Borelli being a little bit younger, I think that he did a really good job in his full shift that he put on up there. And I thought he was really exciting to watch. A little bit frustrating. There were some things that we'll talk about, I'm sure, that we wanted to see from him as far as being a little more creative and loose with the ball. But I thought I was very impressed, and I look forward to seeing him play a lot more prominent role as far as being a main part of the offense.
Just in terms, Mika, of like getting some key players, just even an hour or 75 minutes rest in, like, Omar obviously has been playing a lot. Foxy seemingly has played pretty much every minute since the season started. How big is it that Mark had this opportunity to get some other players minutes, but also in the process, like, rest some players up as well?
Yeah, I think that while the fixture list certainly looked congested at the start of this kind of homestand, I think ultimately it worked out to where we were able to rotate as much as we did with switchbacks. Unfortunately, Dylan Mares does not get the the rest treatment. But yeah, no, it was I think crucial for our playoff hopes, I guess you could say, for Omar and Foxy to get a rest, because they are, bona fide starters for us. And I'm hoping that we can continue to kind of rotate as we go now that we've got that berth locked up. Because we just don't want to see the guys get kind of jaded going into the crucial part of the season. But yeah, it worked out. And I think you could tell that the players that we had on the night don't have the same understanding that our starters do. It was a little more choppy, I guess you could say, and definitely there was a lack of chemistry among some of them, but that's to be expected. We still come away with the win, so ultimately it's all good on that front.
The beginning of the first half, Locomotive start, I think, not dissimilar to the last game. Locomotive start quite well. And within just a few minutes, Christian, you brought it up, but Caijo, however you spell it, he's got a huge chance in front of Switchbacks net. And I think anybody who has paid any attention to Bravos over the last few seasons would have bet the farm that he would put that chance away. I mean, it was basically made for the type of striker that he is.
Yeah, I was legitimately heartbroken when he missed, because that was going to be mostly because that would have given me points for our prediction game. Yeah, I mean, you just have to make that one. It's close range. He was already very close to the goalie, so I'll give him a little bit of slack for that. There's not a lot of space to put it around, but he can do it, so he should have done it.
I mean, the chance comes really quickly. Carrijo does, though, turn around and provide a couple of chances. And I mean, Mika, like, in terms of his creativity, not something that was on my radar. Like, thinking about the finishing ability is one thing, but he seems to have like a little bit of a playmaking ability in his locker too.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple times where he was kind of, dropping off almost like a false nine, I guess you could say, or even into that 10 position and picking the ball up, or, offering himself for the pass, and just trying to link up. Definitely different from Josue Aron Gomez. Carrijo had his back to the goal a lot. So, you kind of saw the the target man aspect as well. There was a pass like really early in the first half that just got rifled at his chest, and the man took it like Marwan Fellaini. Like it looked like it didn't hurt him at all. So he's a very interesting player, just from what I was able to gather last night. Yeah, I don't know. With that point blank chance, I almost wonder, is it one of those, cliches where like the chance came too early and
right.
He wasn't quite warmed up to take it, but that would have been a dream start for him. But I think overall the Carrillo did pretty well regardless.
Yeah, I think kind of throughout, I mean, the combination of like that lack of fluidity about the whole side, I think there was an aspect of that in kind of the way the chance comes about almost leads to him not really being like mentally prepared for it. Because I think in terms of, if he's kind of in a position to receive that pass and he gets his body shape right, then maybe he like chips the keeper instead of trying to play that low shot, and the keeper, slides out and everything and does a lot of things right in terms of like coming off his line and being quick to the ball and all of that. But yeah, it was disappointing, as you said, Christian, because it's one of those moments where if it does go in, I mean, we're probably talking about a quite different game the day after if that first goal comes inside 10 minutes. Like, we've seen fight back from switchbacks, and we did tonight, but there's potential for this game to maybe like get out of hand if things continued like at that pace, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It's always good to score early. I don't know. Sometimes with this team, though, with our team specifically, we tend to I think we still have the tendency to kind of drop off a little bit after we score. So maybe it's good that we, wait a little bit before that goal goes in, so that, we're not having to deal with, going in tied with a 45th minute goal from the opponent. I don't know. That's just me trying to make myself feel better about the miss. Yeah. I didn't want him to score anyways. It's fine.
Right. Right. So, Mikka, I mean, it's kind of a slow first half, and we talked about it, but like, there's kind of this growing trend almost, it seems like, throughout the season, where even if we start kind of quickly, the first half is often fine in a lot of ways. Like, our performances have been okay, but not like overly impressive or intense across the first 45. And then at the interval and beyond, it seems like we kind of try to get to a different level or something like that. Do you think that's intentional in terms of this like growing into the game? Or do you think it's just the nature of the way that this side is like put together? Or is it something else entirely? Like, why is it that this team just feels in the first half kind of pedestrian and then like turns it on later?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that I'd say it's intentional. I think it has a lot to do with this specific opponent. I mean, we say it all the time on this podcast. Colorado Springs is kind of hard to pin down in terms of the personnel and the tactics and who really is, the danger man for them, I guess you could say. With this one, Colorado definitely kept the game narrow, as I kind of predicted last time we recorded. Seemed like they really didn't want to get into that midfield battle with us, and I feel like that's what kind of led to the choppiness of the game and that kind of the pedestrian nature of it, as you said, Phil. I think it had a lot to do with this opponent specifically, but in other games, you're absolutely right. We definitely have grown into matches and come out in the second half dominating. Might have to do with the fact that we're just trying to assess a situation and assess, what areas of the ball of the pitch we're going to be really battling for the ball, or who do we need to watch out for? What's the shape of the team? These are all things that you can learn in that first half. And I mean, theoretically, you'd probably want to know these things beforehand, but I'm not privy to how much, scouting infrastructure there is in USL. So maybe it's just one of those things that, you kind of take on the fly and you can address it at halftime. But yeah, I think both of those things kind of play into that.
The first half goes by, quickly or slowly. I don't know how you want to characterize it, but it was, for you guys watching in the stadium, we had a bit of a weird moment because at the hydration break, normally, you guys would be the ones like out on the field trying to get the scoops if a player's maybe on the sideline or watching from the stands. In some cases, we can kind of see maybe a scoop here or there, an injury, something like that. In this case, I was the one getting the scoop ahead of you somehow
from 1,000 miles away.
Yeah. The bombshell at the hydration break. So the hydration break in the first half goes on, and we had speculated on the last episode of this podcast that Chiro and Toko was likely suffering from a long-term injury due to the team commemorating him in a couple of different ways. And during the hydration break, he joined Duke and Michael on the broadcast to basically announce the fact that he had a torn ACL. And despite the fact that we kind of saw it coming, like there's still something shocking about hearing it out loud and in that manner where like Chiro is done 100% for the season, and ACL tears, like, not easy to recover from. Like, what's your feeling? And Christian, we can start with you. Just what's your feeling about Chiro? And like, I don't know. I have a sick feeling almost about the fact that one of our most experienced players, like, out with a very serious injury that would be tough for a young guy to bounce back from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, it's something that you really can't ever plan for. From a personnel standpoint, from a player standpoint, I'm sure it's probably a little frightening. I think that especially as a defender, you tend to be a more physical player, I think. And so any sort of serious injury like that, I think it just really puts the rest of your career in danger. And so it's really rough to have to deal with that. I don't know, it's who knows if he plays again. I don't know if that's me being too pessimistic or too cynical, but like you said, one of the older guys on the team, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just scary. Like Mika, I mean, we've seen plenty of players across like world football or whatever. It's a pretty common injury, all things considered. But anytime it happens, it's pretty scary for the player.
Oh yeah, it's devastating. And like Christian was saying, Chiro is 32 years old, going to be 33 next year. I think January of next year. And so, definitely one of the older heads, the captain. It's really unfortunate, and even more unfortunate that it's a training incident. I mean, not that it makes it any better if it was during a match, but just, I can just imagine something routine, that they do in training winding up in this serious injury, and the, the road back from that can take quite a while, even after the ligament itself is actually repaired. I mean, there's also the mental aspect of it too, having been away from your teammates and the pitch and trusting your body again, that can be tough for players. So obviously I hope that the recovery and the rehab goes, well, and that he's able to continue playing, but it's devastating. But at the same time, hopefully this will galvanize the squad, going into the playoffs and, have just one more thing to play for, one more person to play for. And that's our captain. So.
Christian, you brought it up when we were speaking about the Bravos boys, but Eder Borelli in the first half sees quite a bit of the ball. And I think during the match when we were just corresponding in our little group chat, from your side of the field and your view of it, you just wanted a little bit more out of his delivery, it seemed like.
I mean, I just wanted some delivery of any sort. It just seemed like they were giving us that side of the field all game. You know, he had so much space out there for a lot of the time. And for whatever reason, there was just a lot of hold up and checking the ball back. And that's just not what I was expecting to see. But, you know, like, what the hell do I know? Maybe the coach didn't want him to put the ball in for whatever reason. But yeah, it was just frustrating to watch a little bit, especially in a game where, you know, in that first half, it looked like I feel like we should have created a lot more chances. I think that we had the ball a lot on that end of the field, especially later in the first half. I think early on, Colorado did a good job of keeping the ball from us, especially in dangerous positions. But later on in the half, we definitely had a lot of space out there, and it was frustrating just to see nothing happening with it.
His delivery, I love the look of it. Like, the shape that he's able to get on the ball, it's very reminiscent to me of what Maka's been able to do from the right side. Not that it's like generated any like goals or whatever, but that kind of in-swinging cross does so much, I think, for forwards. The problem being that I think it's been such a long time since Borelli has delivered a cross like in game that I think he spent much of the first half just like I think he maybe plays like 4 or 5 crosses in the first half, and they're all kind of like overhit and they like go out like behind or something like that. And I think it's all just I think it's a byproduct of the fact that he just hasn't delivered a cross in an actual game in quite a long time. So I'm sure he might be dropping dimes in practice and just putting it right on somebody's head. But obviously game is a whole different situation. And so I think maybe he spent, that time trying to find his range, but I certainly agree that I think he should have been a little less, gun shy in terms of playing crosses. Like, we know that we're a crossing team. We cross the ball a lot. I think, I didn't see the number for this game, but in the game, previous against San Antonio, I think we played nearly 40. So I think, obviously Fox kind of understands his license to cross, and maybe Eder was a little, maybe trying to link up a little bit more, which like we obviously like to see. But you're absolutely right that it didn't turn into a lot of like end product, which is kind of, first edition Locomotive vibes, which we shall not speak about. But into the second half, Locomotive, we see that same response. And Mikka, like, pretty quickly after the restart, the pressure that we've talked about these last few games where we've gotten these late winners and we've built the pressure. The pressure starts building pretty much from the second half kickoff, and it all culminates initially in Saeed Robinson's first goal for the club. Talk about that goal and kind of like how we started the second half and Set Piece FC somehow.
Set Piece FC. My, how far we've come. Well, Christian and I, we were, of course, on in the dugout last night, and Christian immediately went up to go start filming the goal because I think we both felt like this is going in for some reason or another. Like, it just felt like it was going to happen. I mean, Richie takes the corner, and Saeed's at that near post, which, as we know, statistically, the near post is where most, corner goals are scored. So good position for him to take up. But then the defender just never gets any close to him. And it's pretty routine. And then Saeed, of course, is classy enough to not celebrate against his old side. So it looked like he wanted to, and then kind of remembered like, oh yeah, I'm playing switchbacks. So, it was a really good goal. I mean, again, virtually unchallenged, and it was a result of that pressure and of Colorado Springs not being able to manage the ball in their own half and having it go out a lot past the goal line or fouling a lot. So I'm really pleased for Saeed. That's his first for the club, and I think we've seen flashes of talent there, but maybe he can just be another target for us on those dead ball situations.
Christian, you were the one who did snag the video and a quality video at that of the goal. Was it just the trend that drove you? And being honest, who did you actually think was going to get on the end of that one?
I had no idea. If I'm being honest with you, there's too many bodies in there, to have a guess. I can't pay attention to who's in the box and who's playing back. So I won't pretend that I had a feeling, but I literally did just have a feeling like that it was time to score a goal. What I thought was interesting that I didn't even think about until after the fact is that it was Richie taking the corner.
It was,
which I don't think we see that a whole lot. That's usually Dylan's bread and butter so far this year. So I don't think that had it occurred to me, like was I processing and thinking about every single thing in the moment, that I would expect that from Richie, just because I don't think we see him do that too often. So, it was just a feeling, it was time. And when else, when else am I going to do it other than a corner kick? I feel like I would look foolish if, every time we started on a counter, I ran up from my seat and ran towards the goal. So, if I'm being honest, though, I'm getting a little bit ahead of us. But if I'm being honest, I knew the Omar goal was coming too, but he's much faster than me. So I didn't want to. I wasn't going to get a good video racing down the sideline with my iPhone.
Like you said, Miga, Saeed gets his first goal for the club, and his performance, was it more of the same kind of the flashes? And I mean, do you think that that's down more to him as a player, or do you think that's down to his inconsistency in terms of being involved with the team? I think he's only started games against Colorado Springs, so a bit of a strange start-stop to Saeed's Locomotive career.
Yeah, I mean, Mark told us that he's still trying to figure out what his best position is, but just based on what we have seen, it almost feels like maybe there's not a natural fit for him in the diamond. He seems to me like a naturally wide player, someone who would enjoy that space. I mean, I think even, kind of playing in that too, I guess you could say he had enough space to roam around and offer himself for the ball. But yeah, flashes of quality here and there. But I think hopefully the goal will do him some good in terms of, confidence and chemistry with his teammates. So I think there's more to see from Saeed, but yeah, maybe it's just a formation. I think he looks to me like a winger. No, I mean, not necessarily like a rampaging winger, but just like a wide playmaker type.
Sure. And speaking of wide playmakers, the half is wearing on. Things are going well, I would say, for Locomotive. I think we were in control. I think we were creating chances, and Christian, another fave, Dylan makes a pretty brilliant run and gets put through on goal and isn't able to lift the ball over the keeper. So another kind of big-ish chance falling to a player who you'd certainly favor to score. Not getting done though. So enter Omar Salgado. There were some calls in our mentions at halftime for Omar, and they proved true with his goal, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, he did his job. He did what he came around to do, and it was just kind of textbook as far as how you would expect Omar to score. Just streaking down the side. Brahim just puts a hell of a ball in, and Omar hits the ball probably the best that we've seen him, in the 18 months that we've been playing as a club. So that's probably the best hit ball he's ever had in his time as on the Locomotive.
The ball from Brahim in midfield, and this is maybe the first episode since he started playing in midfield that we haven't really like dedicated a segment to him, which I think is almost more of a compliment than not, because I think in this team, if you're a midfielder that we're talking about, if you haven't scored, then it probably means something bad, because the midfielders are often doing a lot of work and not a lot of the kind of like getting a lot of the plaudits. But Brahim plays a brilliant ball through. Little bit of luck, Mika, on the stumble from the defender, but Omar in that position, we haven't really seen a killer instinct, I would say, from Omar in those type of positions. But he hit this ball like no one was taking this goal from him. He was going to score, and he was going to score emphatically.
For sure. Omar, on the replay, you can see him look for someone in the box and see what is and assess the options as good wingers do. But the chance was really good for him because the keeper comes way out, and he hits it right across him. And I think it does get a little bit on the keeper, but I mean the shot is just simply too powerful.
Right.
So it was a great finish from him. Something that I think we and a lot of fans have been wanting to see is him to just smash it, and get that on target. Rather than maybe, look for a teammate or something, or just kind of square it. So,
sure.
Fair play to Omar for just putting his boot through that. And, maybe it had something to do with the fact that he did come on as a sub. And so, when you come on as a substitute, you want to make an impact. And he certainly did that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we see, I don't know. I think what we're seeing right now is Omar, obviously and rightfully so, he's getting a lot of the plaudits because he's been scoring goals, assisting goals. He's been involved in these wins. He's been making really amazing runs. He's taking players on. He's in this really confident mood. And I hope, for his sake, that it is not just a spell, but I hope he can kind of turn this into, this is how he is normally. Like I think the issue for Omar traditionally has been that this is something he's capable of, but not something that he does consistently. And so I'm hoping that he can turn this spell into something where, this is kind of like the norm of how Omar is playing. He's destroying fullbacks. He's like, even simply like putting shots on target. Cause I think unconfident Omar, and not that there is such a thing, but like Omar, who's not feeling it fully, doesn't necessarily take that shot and maybe even forces a pass instead, or tries like maybe a curler or something like to try to beat the keeper. And this is Omar just trusting himself, which I think is probably the best version of Omar. And long may it continue, because I think he's been absolutely dominant these last few weeks. And we know that he's always had the physicality, but it's more so been the question of the decision making. And in this case, he makes absolutely the right decision and executes it to perfection by just smashing it in the far corner, because sometimes that's what the situation calls for. But in a way, the goal is in and of itself a drawback, because the thing about Colorado Springs is that they are the best team in USL when trailing by multiple goals.
Is that like statistically like true?
I don't know, but I know for a fact that they have they've got the draw from 3-0 down and down to 10 men against Monarchs. They've got a draw from a 4-4 against Bold. They have 2 goals for like the 4-2 against us. The 2 goals in the final 10 minutes. And in the final 10 minutes here, Colorado Springs, I don't know what it was about them, but I mean, these guys were like unplayable for like 8 minutes. What, like how, what do you guys like make of this team? And like, does it just speak to the weirdness of this edition of Switchbacks?
It has to. I have no explanation for that. I mean, I turned to Christian and said, why have they decided to now play football in the 80th minute? Like, yeah, those last 15, 20 minutes were scary, honestly. I don't know. Like, I don't know what could have possibly, I mean, they make a couple changes, but, I don't know. It was I mean, I felt like we could concede a couple, and clean sheets are hard to come by, despite the fact that we're in this good run of form. But yeah, in the 80th minute, I think it was kind of I don't know if it was just like a lapse in concentration or just tiredness from Brett Coleman, but he misses a challenge, and you know, they're able to ruin the clean sheet for us on Noche de Locos, but I have no idea about this Colorado Springs side, honestly.
I think it's a lot about us too, because I feel like aside from, well, I was gonna say even the Phoenix goals, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the goals that we've given up this year are just like, they're not like goals that the other teams have created. They're like gift goals because for whatever reason, we just decide to stop playing defense for those like 15, 20 seconds. That's kind of the most frustrating part. And I mean, we are playing defense for this one, but like Mika said, it's just a lapse in judgment, just one little decision. You know, if Brett gets a toe on that ball, then he doesn't, I forget who scores, but they don't have the clear shot that they do like that. And so just, a game of centimeters.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because I think defensively, generally speaking, I think we can all agree that we're pretty solid. We do a lot of proactive defending, I guess you would say. But in some of these games, it has been, I mean, as I think back, it's just like, bad back pass or like, inability to stop a counter, whatever, and it turns into a goal, where it would almost, like you said, like it would almost be better if a team just like absolutely cut us to pieces and scored. Like it almost feel better about that because like at least they earned it, like at least
it would be easier to accept for sure. And the thing about the mistakes too, or the lapses in concentration or however you want to call it, is we don't have the athleticism back there to make up for it that other teams have. There was another point earlier in the second half, I think it was like the 63rd minute, another point blank shot that luckily Logan's able to deal with it, but that's Brent again not reacting quickly enough. And I don't think that's because he's a bad player, obviously. It's just like a more athletic center back could maybe put their body on the line in that situation. And luckily it's not a goal there, but it ends up being one, later on down the line. So yeah, I just think that a lot of times, and you see this in bigger clubs too, that some of these defenders might not be as technically savvy or positionally aware, but they're athletes and they can sprint back and then, kind of cover their mistakes a little bit better. So I think that kind of happens to us a lot too, which of course, does make it seem like we're creating goals for the other side. They're not necessarily creating them themselves, as Christian was saying.
But in the end, Locomotive do survive, and credit to Logan. I think the couple of saves that he made, especially late, were impressive, and also not easy in a game where you don't have much to do until the final 10 minutes. So credit to Logan for staying in it and making the big saves when were possible. I don't think I don't think there's much he can do about the goal. But he keeps Colorado Springs at bay, and ultimately Locomotive do get the win, get the spot in the playoffs, and get to top spot of Group C with just 4 games to play, and a big fixture on the horizon looming against New Mexico United, kind of that heavyweight bout for the Group C title. But in the meantime, we have the small matter of Real Monarchs, and we'll close out after the break. We'll close out with our last few bits about Colorado Springs, and then we will talk about Real Monarchs this Saturday as Locomotive close out a big week with the fixtures coming thick and fast, as I say. So we'll be right back in a second to talk about all that. Thanks again to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, US Soccer, and Seriously Loco. We've got some news about that shortly after the break. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. And thanks to our other sponsors, Icarus FC. If you're tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates from Nike and Adidas, and you're looking for a unique, completely custom kit for your youth club, Sunday league squad, adult, pro team, Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom kit today at IcarusFC.com. They drop all kinds of fire. Check them out. And welcome back to Seriously Loco. Well, during the break, we got some pretty interesting news. And Mika, I'll let you go into our merch update right now.
Merch update, yes. Well, Seriously Loco, we are officially sold out of our first run of Seriously Loco scarves. So really, I just want, on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you to everyone who bought a scarf and is supporting what we do in terms of, creating content for you guys. Obviously the scarves, whatever we make from those, we put right back into the show and into our content. So thank you so much to everyone who bought a scarf, and please send us your pictures of you wearing them, or your kids wearing them, or wearing them at the games. We love to see that stuff. So thank you guys so much to everyone who bought one.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And like now that we're sold out of scarves, like conversations about what's next can begin. So if you guys have like something that you really want merch wise or whatever, like we are open to any and all ideas. We've got a couple cooking right now, but nothing concrete. So, hit us up if there's something you really want with the logos on it, or if you want to see something different from us, just let us know at Seriously Loco. But the closing out this game against Colorado Springs, last week we had just a plethora of potential Shithouse 11 nominees. This week we're back to being a little more lean. So your guys' thoughts about the shithousery in this one, and is there anyone from Switchbacks, or this season we've included Locomotive, so is there anyone making the 11 from this week in your guys' eyes?
For me, it was a game where like I was upset a lot at the ref. I feel like it was chippy, but nothing really stood out to me in terms of like pure shithousery. I thought a lot of the physicality and the aggression of the game was football related. Just there's a little extra to it, but I don't think that there was anything that necessarily had like any malice in it. So it was hard for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The only thing that I can think of, it was more just kind of funny and something that you don't maybe see when you're watching on TV or in the stands, is the conversations that the players have with like the officials. Kallman was really giving it to Chris Canales at one point, and I felt kind of bad for Chris there, but he was just staring very professional, like didn't say anything, but Brent was kind of going off at him. Nothing too bad worthy of making the Shithouse 11 though in this one, I don't think, unless we just want to throw Jordan Burt in there on mustache merit alone, but
he did make the team last year based off of his mustache. I think in the 11 graphic, we actually put Jordan Burt's mustache specifically, like not him, just his mustache. So yeah, I'll go with that. Although I do think Argueta just gets a bit of a nod for a couple of borderline challenges that happened in kind of quick succession and weren't whistled. Like, oddly enough, like he takes out Richie Ryan and they start with a drop ball, which I thought was really bizarre. But yeah, but Argueta's already in, so there's no need to double up on the man. He just, he solidified his spot. But there were obviously Locomotive come away with the win, and in any win, there's going to be those players that stood out to you. So who for you, and Christian, we can start with you. Just who do you think changed the game for Locomotive?
So for me, I don't know if it's changing the game as much as kind of kept us in the game, but I think Logan had a really good game. We haven't said that a lot this season, and usually that's a good thing, for the most part. We haven't had too many games where he's had to do too much, but I think that he made some saves that really we couldn't blame him if he hadn't made them. So I think that he deserves some credit for this one. I think he really was able to keep us from being very disappointed with the result.
Mika, you got any thoughts on the key man in this one?
I like the Logan shout. Yeah, he was very good, as always, honestly. But I'm going to give a shout to Brian Rebellon. I think he's come on in leaps and bounds in that midfield in a short space of time. From his first time in that midfield against this same opponent to last night was, really, really fascinating to see how he did. I mean, he had, 80% pass success, which, for a midfielder is pretty decent. Won all of his tackles of the 3 that he attempted, had 4 recoveries and an interception, and of course the assist. And even more than the assist is just that was such a midfielder's play, is to quickly win the ball back and spring somebody to attack. And so I thought Brian had a really, really good game. I predicted him to have a goal, but I'll take the assist.
Yeah, I think for all the initial questioning and I don't want to say criticism so much as just like seeing, hey, how's he going to fit in? I think he's answered a lot of the questions over these last 2 performances. He certainly seems at home now. But a player who's definitely at home in midfield, who kind of caught me by surprise when I was digging through the stats of this one, is none other than Richie Ryan, who created 4 chances in this match from his normal defensive midfielder position. Obviously gets the assist from a corner, but 4 chances created from kind of a deep lying playmaker like him. Not normal. And obviously with Dylan in the squad, he's primarily been our most creative player. Richie showing what he can do from a little bit further back, but showing that he still is, obviously involved in progressing the play and involved in our attack in this one.
Richie's such a legend. Honestly, I was going through his clips playing for Sunderland on YouTube the other day, and it blew my mind that he has played against the Arsenal that contained players like Perez and Henry, and they got smashed like 4-0, but it was cool to see Richie on the pitch with those kind of players and to see him, captaining us from time to time and impacting the game like he did last night. It's just awesome to have a player of his pedigree in the side.
Speaking of Richie, I actually tonight we had a little bit of an interview with one Jeff Reuter, which will be going up first and foremost for our patrons on Patreon. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/seriouslyloco. And there will be a podcast feed for these bonus episodes that you get as a subscriber. You can get that feed, and it'll only go to you for the first few days. We will post the interview in its entirety in the normal feed, so you can wait for it as normal. But Jeff Reuter told me a really interesting fact about Richie Ryan, and I'll drop it here because it's tangential to the rest of the podcast. But Richie Ryan actually has the record for largest transfer fee ever commanded by a lower league player in the United States. When he went from Jacksonville to Miami FC, Miami FC paid a transfer fee of $750,000 to transfer Richie Ryan to the Miami FC, which not a small fee when you consider that most players in the U.S. are moving for nothing. Like,
jeez. Yeah, and that's when he was able to play for Alessandro Nesta. So that's incredible.
Miami FC is all about those fat contracts. That's what I'm taking from that.
I want one of those Macron kids so bad, but I just don't want to finance those fat contracts. So pain.
So pain. So anyways, the task at hand, Christian. We had another game, another group of score predictions, and another group of points to hand out. Where did they land in this particular case?
Well, it was a fairly average week for us. No one got anything particularly right. We all predicted a win, so we all got at least 1 point. Austin picked a 2-0 win, so he didn't get the score, but he did predict. Yeah, but he did predict an Omar goal. So had we not fallen asleep at the end there, he would have gotten it exactly right. So Austin finishes the week with 2 points for the result and the goal scorer. I picked a win. I had a 3-0 win with Leandro scoring, so 1 point. Mika had a 2-0 win.
You should have more, though.
I should. I really should. God damn it. Mika picked a 2-0 win with Brian scoring, so she gets a point for the result. Phil, you had a 3-0 win with Gomez scoring, so a point for the result. So the leaderboard doesn't look too different than it did last week. Austin advances by a point over the rest of us, so he's at 20 now. He is at 20 with 4 games to go. Mika is trailing in second place with 12. Phil in third place with 9. So still definitely room for Phil to make second place. And I am in fourth with 8 points. So 4 points behind first place. So I think first place is all but settled. But second place, there's still a lot to fight for.
Austin is the San Antonio FC, and we're all just fighting for second beneath in what is turning out to be a weak group. Unfortunately, Austin just running the table pretty much right now. But we do have a game coming up now against Real Monarchs, and another chance to predict and make up some ground, guys. Monarchs is just it's another one that this season has been so strange, obviously because of the impact of COVID, particularly on these MLS 2 sides. They go to they're taking on Timbers 2 this weekend, so a clash of 2 reserve sides. And Mika, like you said, surprised to see them throw it away, but their loss equals our actual gain of a playoff spot.
Yeah. Oh man, it's poetry. They were leading, and then it just fell away, and Locos fans we were all collectively watching that result. I don't know. They've got 2 straight losses now to New Mexico United, then of course the T2 last night. They dominated possession in both those losses, which is kind of odd. They had less possession against Colorado Springs when they smashed them 4-1 3 games ago. So they kind of are suffering from a lot of the same things that I think Colorado Springs are, in that they get on the ball a lot and don't do a lot with it. And then, in other games they have to just scramble and get the goals. So I don't know. I'm hoping that we can make it, 8 undefeated and 5 in a row, 5 wins in a row. But again, like I'm saying, I'll probably keep saying it all throughout the playoffs. No time to be complacent.
Yeah. Christian, I mean, we saw David Ochoa return to Monarchs, and does it give you a little creeping feeling about maybe that loan bomb coming? Like maybe Monarchs are going to make more players available now that COVID is, the MLS teams are out of the bubble. They're playing in their home markets. Like, do you think there's a concern that maybe some of these teams might see more MLS, for lack of a better term, bubble player, like on the bubble players, making their way back to Monarchs and trying to get more playing time here as the MLS season kind of normalizes, I guess?
I think yes and no, because I think a lot of we hung around with them last year, the conference final notwithstanding. And a lot of the players that they were playing with last year are playing regularly for Monarchs. Martinez is getting minutes there. Eric Holt's playing. Who else? There's one more. I think I can't think of the name right now. There's one more that is getting play over there. So I don't imagine that they send down. So my mindset is we kept up with those guys, the guys that are playing with the MLS squad right now. Like, I think if they want to send guys that are not them, then we can probably keep up with them as well. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, it is certainly a different team, especially guys like Martinez. And is there do you guys take any revelry or any whatever? That was like way too intense of a word, but like, do you guys enjoy the fact that Ochoa was on the field for this particular loss that sent Locomotive into a playoff spot after the scenes towards the end of the Western Conference final last season? Of
course. He's the ultimate shithouse for his actions in that game last season. I'm not gonna lie, I've not paid a whole bunch of attention to him from what I've been able to gather, his form's been kind of up and down, and I think that's to be expected with a young player, especially a keeper. But thanks for the loss.
We saw in this one against Colorado Springs, Locomotive made a few changes, as we spoke about at the beginning of the episode. But what do you guys think in terms of, and Christian, we can start with you. Do you think we see a return to kind of that tried and true lineup that we've seen trotted out most times? Do you think maybe there's even further changes or different tweaking that Mark does? Who do you think we can expect to be involved in this one?
I think this is an interesting one because, he did get a lot of the key players some rest, but also this is kind of like Colorado Springs, a squad where maybe we can afford to do a little bit of experimenting. And if we're able to get guys some more rest in preparation for New Mexico next week, then that's even better. I think that, I don't know. It's so hard because I don't know what to think of the Monarchs offense. I think that this could be a game where hopefully, Dylan gets some rest and maybe one goal is good enough. Just getting one goal that we don't need a whole lot of creativity for is good enough for us. So that's a hard one to predict. I think it can go either way. We can see the lineup that kind of, the A squad. And if that is the case, I think that the game plan will be to score early so that maybe we see some halftime subs. to get those guys a lot of rest. It's hard to predict. Sorry, I'm going in circles here, but my answer to your question, Phil, since I've skated around it for a minute now, my answer is that I think we see the A team. I think we see Omar, Gomez, Dylan. Who's going to be on the wing move? So I guess Chapa and Brahim and Richie, and the same back four that we've been seeing, the Maka, Brent, Mishak, and Foxy.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think Mika, what's your vibe? I mean, there's a week in between Monarchs and New Mexico United. How much do you think that informs Mark's decision making, or does he still look for an opportunity to rest a guy like Dylan, who I think we joked about in the group chat, just like being like completely spent at this point because he's played literally he started every single game that we've played since the restart.
I would hope that we see Dylan get some rest. I would be okay with all the rest of our usual starters starting in this match, except for him. It would be nice if we could just take him out of there. That might require a change in shape though, because I don't know who else is really a natural 10, to put in the hole like that. But yeah, with a week in between this match and New Mexico United, there's no reason why we shouldn't play, the big guys. But let's talk about how Mark used 5 subs last night. I was flabbergasted, but like in the best way. So, Mark's getting hip to that we want to see that, and that it's necessary at this point in the season. So maybe we see more of the same on Saturday.
I think the other thing too, if we're talking about lineups, is kind of the mindset at this point. Obviously, we would like to win the group. I think that, of course, you want to win the group, but we have clinched a playoff spot at this point. So you balance out, how much you want to win the group, or, you take the 1 point, because I think we do have to win every game to win the group. I think New Mexico is going to win every game. The toss-up is between us, when we face off for the last time. I think New Mexico is going to win every game, so I think that we have to as well. So it comes down to, do you want to win the group more badly than you want a really good chance to move in the playoffs? Because we're in the playoffs no matter what. And I think it's like, do you risk having someone like Dylan get hurt, which I think destroys our playoff hopes? I think we're lucky to win one game in the playoffs without Dylan. Mm-hmm. So it's down to that balancing act that coaches in every sport have to play. Once you've clinched the playoff spot, what do you do at that point?
Yeah, well, and I think, it's tough. And with a couple of serious injuries, obviously already this season between Nick Ross and Chiro, it's a little difficult to balance that, because I think the problem with the format that we're in right now is that the winner of Group C, basically, if we have to play San Antonio in the first round, it's a lot tougher task than either Tulsa or Austin in the first round, because both those teams have been very inconsistent. Whereas San Antonio, obviously, tough test. We got past them in the match we did play. But I do think in this format, like, the difference between having to play San Antonio in the first round and the difference between, one of those teams is vast in terms of our chances of progressing. Not to say that it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think there's a lot of value in winning the group. I think the question is in, like, how much value does Mark and even, like, maybe the club at large, like, how much value do they put into making a deep playoff run if it potentially comes at the risk of, like, longer term investments? Because next season will obviously be at least as close to a normal season as USL can get in 2021, whatever that looks like, I guess. So yeah, I think it's an interesting proposition, because it's like, is there a chance to take a back seat? Like, is that the vibe already? Who knows? But based on the usage of Dylan Mahrez, like, I see no reason that he will be rested. Like, I don't know that he will be, because we just haven't seen it yet. Or we have in parts, I guess. But I think Saeed started one game at the 10 against Colorado Springs early in the season, but we haven't seen much of it. So I'm very interested to see what the plan is with Dylan, because I think long term we probably have to think about having more than one 10 like capable of playing. Sure. So maybe that's the idea, is maybe they identify like someone in the offseason who can fill that role a little more naturally. I don't know. But I guess we'll find out if Dylan's going to be stretched to the nth degree to try to win the group, or if he's given a bit of a break. It's a very strange situation though, because we do have kind of this thing going on now where we've said, the club has said and Mark has said that he's looking ahead to next season, but we also are very much in contention of doing something this season as well. And I don't know if the value of doing something this season is changing for the club. Like maybe it is more of an idea because now we can have fans. I don't know. Like maybe when it was like no spectators, it's like, well, this is chalked. Like, who cares? Because we can't make any money off of playoff games. Now they can. So like, I don't know if that's overly cynical, but like maybe there's more incentive from the club to actually push on and do something. I don't know. That's all complete speculation, but that, why else do you listen?
No, I mean, it sounds perfectly reasonable for them to be thinking that way. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, obviously we will see, but I personally would be thrilled to win the group, but I would rather have healthy players for the playoff push, to be honest. So I think we'll see the starters, but I hope at least Mahrez gets some time to come in casual clothes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth looking ahead to predict this one. Get our choices in and see who see if someone can close the gap on Ostradamus. There's not much time. I think it will take a few perfect scores. Actually, I don't think we can. No, we could catch him.
Yeah. There's 4 games.
Yeah.
Even I'm only 12 points behind. So if Austin gets none and I get 4 perfect scores, I'll pass him by 4. So
yeah. So we'll go ahead with the score predictions, and I believe, Christian, you get to lead things off, unless you're not liking the leading things off, and maybe it's actually more of an advantage to go last. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure.
No, honestly, I don't imagine I would pick based on what anyone else is saying, so it doesn't matter to me. So I'll go ahead and go first. And I haven't been keeping track of if this strategy would have worked in the past, but I'm going to try something this time and match our previous results against this team. So I am going to call for a 2-1 win, and I say Brent will score again.
Okay. I mean, set piece, we only score from set pieces now. So,
defenders tend to score as well.
Yeah. It's not a bad shout at all. I guess that brings it to me. And, gosh, I really want a clean sheet, but the only way that this team is getting a clean sheet at the moment is in a 1-0 So I'm going to go for that. Because for some reason, when we score a second, we automatically concede, or we have to score a second deep into stoppage time. So I'll go for a 1-0, grind one out against Monarchs, and I will say, and I think I've probably been guessing this for long enough to make it stupid now, but I'm going to say that Gomez scores. Because eventually he will. Like, that's just, like, it's math, I think.
He's saving it for the playoffs again this year.
Yeah. Maybe so. Mika, what's your thought?
I'm going 2-1 again, and I'm also going Brian Rebillon again to score.
Unchanged.
Unchanged. I want to see it happen. He scored last time, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Austin could not join us tonight, but he also predicted a 2-1 Locomotive win and Gomez as a goal scorer.
I should say that I sorely want to predict an Omar goal, especially if Ochoa is in the net. But I care about not coming in last in this thing too much. So I had to go with the logical choice.
In terms of shithouse levels, before we end this episode, in terms of shithouse levels, who has the biggest expected shithousery, Omar or David Ochoa?
We're playing at home, so I'm saying Omar. I think Omar's gonna absolutely feed off the eighth notch energy.
Omar does love a show at home. That's fair.
True.
Yeah, I think his what is it, XSH?
Yeah.
What are we calling this stat? I think it's off XSH. The charts for this. I think it's off the charts at home.
Shithouse per 90 is just unbelievable. His
shithouserous actions per 90.
Yeah, I think Omar will. I think he'll actually, like you said, I think he'll relish the occasion, and we know that when Omar is shithousing at his highest, it means that he is also like at his best performing, which often is not the case for players, but for Omar is. Like when he's acting at his like worst, his most like chippy, his most like randomly fouling people, his most like that's also when he's most likely to score. So yeah, he's like a 99 rated walkout like FIFA Team of the Year card. Yeah, like when he's pissed off, he's just so good. You won't like me when I'm angry. Like he's literally just the Hulk.
I might just yell. I might just be yelling at him from the sideline that his mom's a hoe. Like I might just be yelling that from the sideline.
And he just starts going beast mode. So hopefully we'll see a show from Omar this weekend. And it should be a good game. I see. The prediction is one thing because I'm trying to get points here, but obviously the fan side of me is hoping for a nice, comfortable win because God knows we've had enough like drama for over the last few weeks to last us a whole season. So I could use a nice, comfortable win just for, so my cardiologist gets off my back. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And we will be back with more following the Monarchs game. It was a double pod week. We did it, guys. So I hope
we need some rest too.
Yeah. So I hope you guys do enjoy. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and basically wherever podcasts are found. And you can find our socials on Twitter and Instagram at Seriously Loco and at Seriously_Loco, respectively. And until next time, stay loco.